In this lecture, we're going to talk about the second stage of successful keywording. I just coined the word keywording, but I like it. And that's called keyword planning. It's sort of this middle phase between between keyword research and keyword organization. And keyword planning is you're starting to get a more concrete understanding of how your account overall is going to be structured. You've completed your research. You now have a really good understanding of all the potential available keywords and search terms. You have all these different ideas, but everything is still pretty unstructured. You have these top of the funnel ideas, you have peripheral keywords, you have middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. You just have a lot of ideas. You've done a lot of research. You understand more about your competition, but things haven't necessarily come together yet. So that stage of planning is where you're going to start getting a better sense of what your final account or campaign or ad group even, this could all be done at each level of that hierarchy, is going to ultimately look like. So let's talk about the different stages of keyword planning in a little bit more detail. So what is keyword planning? You're beginning to map out your keyword bid strategy, number one. All right, so now you've done some research. You want to start figuring out during the keyword planning stage, this ad group or this campaign is going to be starting off with this bidding strategy, whether it be target CPA, target ROAS, manual CPC, enhanced CPC. That's all part of keyword planning, and that's going to change whether you're redoing or restructuring an account that you've taken over. I'm going to have an entire section of this course dedicated to auditing an existing account. And if you're doing that, you might be switching some ad groups to target CPA. You might have a high performers ad group, right? Remember we spoke about that based on your historic data. This is a drastically different process when it's using historic data or when you're starting from scratch, but the concepts are the same. So you might have different bidding strategies that you're going to start putting into place during your keyword planning. You're going to start segmenting out your research, the keywords you've done, into two different top line buckets, peripheral and target. Peripheral keywords, like I've mentioned in the past, are these top of the funnel keywords that don't necessarily represent as much buyer intent. For example, if we're advertising for office chairs, buy office chairs online, we would call that a target keyword because it expresses commercial intent. You have a couple action words in there. You have buy, you have online, you have the item I'm describing. It's a really good bottom of the funnel keyword that's going to be very competitive, but it's clearly indicating, the person who's writing that clearly is indicating that they're looking to buy something, or at least they're telling us they're in the market for this. Now, peripheral is something like lumbar support at work, or my back hurts at work, or how to solve back problems at work. And if we have a section of chairs that do just that, that we sort of market that way, that have better lumbar support, that help relieve back pain, that's a more peripheral keyword, which shouldn't be ignored. It just doesn't necessarily go in the same place in the hierarchy of how you're setting up your account. It's going to have a different bid. It's going to definitely go to different content, because what's the distinguishing factor here? What's the main difference between a peripheral and target keyword? I'll give you a second. Target keywords, the person or the user is expressing commercial intent to buy. Peripheral keywords, we do not have any idea whether or not the person is in the market, and we need to sort of hedge our bets by bidding lower and sending them to different content to see if they are in the market. You might be asking, well, if I don't know if a person's in the market, why pay any money to get them into my store? Well, the answer to that is, and we've answered that before, is because peripheral keywords that have less commercial intent are also going to be cheaper. So you don't know if a target keyword costs $5 for a click and a peripheral keyword costs 60 cents for a click. It all depends on the conversion rate. So yeah, much fewer of the peripheral searches are going to convert, but you don't know if a peripheral search will convert at maybe an even more profitable level, because the target searches are much more saturated, therefore much more competitive. Remember, Sergey Brin and Larry Page up in Google and Mountain View are not determining what any keyword should arbitrarily cost. It's the competitors. It's you, it's your competitors. It's Poppin, it's Macy's, it's Amazon, it's all the other online retailers that are competing on the same keyword that are determining what every single individual keyword search term should cost. So again, you have to test these peripheral keywords. That's how you're going to have an outstanding campaign. If you're just running target keywords, you're just going to be the same as everybody else. If you understand how to profitably bid and come up with ideas and organize peripheral, middle, top of the funnel keywords, that's where you're going to be a top 1%er when it comes to Google Ads. Psychological constructs. You're going to begin to segment out search terms by the buyer funnel and how a person is searching. So you have people who describe their question themselves, right? Like, how do I solve my back problem online? They like literally talk to search engines with questions. Other people look for specific products. Other people look for model numbers. You're going to start looking at your search terms and using psychological constructs, which we'll talk about when we talk about the buyer's funnel, when we talk about keyword planning in greater detail, when we actually go and do it, you're going to start understanding your keywords in terms of psychological constructs, because why? That's going to inform what a bid should look like and what content it's going to go to as well. And you're going to also begin to understand through keyword planning, how should you start? You can't start with everything, and in most cases, unless you have an enormous budget. Remember, we spoke about that budget being spread too thin. If you have a $50 a day budget, you really shouldn't have more than 10, 15 keywords if they're high volume keywords. And everyone hates it when I say that, because they have 500 keywords they want to run and they don't want to spend more than $50. Well, you need to pick one of the two. You can't spread a $50 a day budget over 500 keywords. You're just going to get, your data is going to be too thin. And remember, the number one thing that you need to think about when you're launching campaigns, or even if you're restructuring campaigns for a client or for yourself, is, am I getting a good, statistically relevant amount of data on an ongoing, recurring basis? There's no specific rule, but I can tell you that a $50 a day budget should not be spread between 500 keywords. So where should you start? You're going to start taking a good amount of these targets, because that's really where you want to start. You want to spend 80% of your budget on the targets and around 20% of your budget on the peripheral keywords, because the peripheral keywords, some of them are going to work, some of them are not. It's research and development, R&D. You're starting to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work, and you're starting to uncover some golden opportunities through those peripherals, and you probably put 20%. But you've done a lot of keyword research, you have lots of ideas, you have 30, 40 different potential ad groups built out, but when you start planning, you're going to start getting a very specific sense of how you should start. Goals, very similar. Let's just run through this real quick. Segmenting out keywords by high, low intent. That's going to be a goal. Content planning, a word on content planning. We mentioned this. Peripheral keywords need to go to educational content, right? So if somebody's searching for how to relieve back pain at work, I don't send them to an office chair. I need to make sure that I have content on my website that talks about, and that gives them an answer to that question in a real informative way. When I mean real informative way, I mean don't just spend 10 minutes throwing up a pathetic blog post. You need to have a real piece of content that a person who is sincerely searching for an answer to that question will really find value in. And that means either taking the time yourself to do it or hiring a writer. And hiring a writer is one of the best things that you could do for your business if you're running, even if you're running Google Ads, especially since you want to be putting 20% and potentially more than 20% middle, top of the funnel peripheral keywords that need to go to educational content. Because most of the time, business owners just don't have the time to write good content, right? Whether or not you have the skills, it's really time consuming. So check out BlogMutt, check out Upwork, check out some of these really good websites where you could hire, for relatively inexpensive, talented freelance writers that could put together good content for your website. So if Poppin was gonna advertise for people looking for ways to relieve back problems, they need to have educational content on their website. So that's something to think about. Whenever you have middle, top of the funnel keywords that are not expressing commercial intent at all, you need to make sure you're sending them to educational content. If you're not, then you're just wasting your money. We have found this over and over again with e-commerce websites that make all their money selling products off their site, that we started running PPC ads from peripheral keywords to blog posts. And we saw incredible results, high click-through rates, because when somebody saw in the title, in the headline of the ad blog post, they know that they weren't being sold. There was no, like you sort of get through that defense mechanism of being sold, and they go to, okay, I'm going to read a blog or whatever it is. And we saw that the engagement rates and the conversion rates were higher than we expected, sending people to good educational content. Target searches, and when I say target, I mean bottom of the funnel, people that are expressing commercial intent, people that are expressing that desire to buy something today, should go to sales pages, right? So if somebody's looking for buy office furniture online or anything in that category where I'm expressing that I'd like to buy something, then you send those people to sales pages. So in this keyword planning stage, you need to start evaluating the content on your website, and whether or not you have any educational content ready will help inform you and help you decide where you should start, what your account should look like. Because if you don't have any educational content, then you really should be spending most of your money on bottom of the funnel keywords that have commercial intent. And in most of your industries, there's plenty out there, right? If you're a local business, if you're an Amazon store, if you're an e-commerce store that's not in a very, very obscure niche, you'll be able to spend plenty of money on target keywords. And then again, keyword planning, as you go through more of these tools and you do some competitive analysis, you're gonna have a clearer sense of who your competition is in those auctions and what they've been doing. Most importantly, you wanna start thinking, as I segment out my ad groups by peripheral, bottom of the funnel, top of the funnel keywords, as I build out separate campaigns, and again, depending on how your account is structured, you're gonna be able to understand who am I competing with in this campaign? Who am I competing with in this campaign? Are they the same companies or are they different companies? And you have tools to analyze that, because you're not going to have the same competitive landscape across every single campaign and ad group in your account. And you're going to be able to use the Auction Insights report in Google Ads, I'll show you how to do that, to get a sense of who you're overlapping with, who you're competing with. And we did touch very briefly upon some of that stuff when I showed you that script earlier on in the course. Tools you're going to be using in the keyword planning stage. You're going to be using the Google Keyword Planner again. You're going to be using ubersuggest.org. Ubersuggest.org is also actually a good tool to use in the keyword research stage. You'll be using Excel, Google Docs for pivot tables, organizing, getting a sense of these lists, coming up with thematically related groups of keywords, which we'll talk about in the next lecture, which is keyword organization. Google Sheets, which is the same as Excel, but easier. Speed PPC, which is a paid software, which is really, really cool. You'll start being able to use Speed PPC if you want to build out large campaigns. If you have a large e-commerce catalog with over, let's say, 20 different product categories, you want to use Speed PPC. I was running a campaign for a few years ago for a client that sells awards and trophies online, hundreds and hundreds of categories. And we use Speed PPC, which is a software that allows you to build out massive groups of campaigns, ad groups in the thousands with highly specified ad text, highly thematically related groups of keywords, and lets you do that at scale quickly. For most of you, it's not worth the cost, because you should really learn how to do it within Google Ads, and which also leads me to AdWords Editor, Google Ads Editor, which is a offline software that sort of mimics the Google Ads dashboard, that allows you to potentially build out large campaigns at scale a little bit faster than doing them inside the Google Ads interface. But you shouldn't really worry about the AdWords Google Ads Editor. It's certainly not necessary to cover anything that we're covering in this course, and there's nothing that you could do in the Google Ads Editor that you can't do online in the Google Ads interface. Maybe if you're doing some huge amount of work, it'll be a little bit faster to do in the editor, but we're not even going to focus on the editor at all. But if you do want to download that and take a look at what that looks like offline, certainly go ahead and take a look at that. So now you have a good understanding of keyword planning, what the goals of keyword planning are. You're starting to sort of see how complex putting together a good keyword list really is. And it is complex. And once you spend the time doing it, you'll see as you build more campaigns for more clients, or as you build more campaigns for your own company and your own business, it's going to go faster and faster and easier, and these things will become second nature to you. In the next lecture, we're going to briefly talk about keyword organization. I'm going to run through it real quick, because in the future lectures, we're going to get into it in much more detail. So thanks for bearing with me. I look forward to seeing you guys very soon in the very next lecture.